Hey, what's going on? My name is Chris Phillips, and I'm here with Adam Pelham, our co-host, and special guest, Tim Corbin, our executive pastor here with our family of churches in Denver, Colorado. Man, if you've ever wondered how you can lead through relationships, today's episode is for you. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about leading through relationships so you can elevate your leadership. All right. Adam, what's going on?
What's up, man?
We're not going to do a heat check today.
No.
Tim, we usually do a heat check with our shoes.
Oh. He's gonna say
we're not
doing
that.
it, but he's
we're not going to do that.
Explain what it is.
So heat check being, do I have any heat on my feet?
Okay.
And so
it's getting hotter outside
it's
too.
Getting hotter outside.
Okay. Literally, my feet are sweating.
We usually wear some nice shoes.
Gotcha.
On a normal basis,
right?
It always ends up on the podcast. I don't think anybody cares.
Literally, probably zero.
But we at least put it on there. Hey, what is going on? I'm Chris Phillips, your host, and co-host Adam Pelham is with us today. Man, we have a really special guest, one that I'm really excited about, because as Adam and I were talking about what we wanted to talk about next on the Elevate Your Leadership podcast, we started talking about how to elevate your leadership through relationships, because relationships are so vital in just our leadership, because without people and relationships, it's really hard to lead. And so as Adam and I were talking, one of the people that came to mind, Tim, was you immediately. And so Tim Corbin is our executive pastor here at our family of churches here in Denver with Journey Point and Riverside. And I say Tim because I've actually known Tim for a while. 2014 is when I met Tim for the first time. I was at a church in Memphis. We actually led a mission trip to Seattle to a church that Tim was part of and started and launched up in Seattle. And so we met him there. And you could just tell Tim was very relational there. In a room of a lot of people, Tim can make you feel like you're the only one there. I'm the guy that has to talk to everybody, Adam. And so everybody doesn't feel like I know they're in the room, even though I'm trying to connect people, right? And I'm trying to get this person over here so it can, empower some movement in their lives, because I know if they can talk to them, then it's going to help them in this way. And so I try to see everybody in that way. But Tim is the guy that says, hey, in the midst of all of this, I'm going to take care of you in that. And so when I thought about leading through relationships, Tim, I thought about you first. And so I wanted to bring you in. Man, would you do me a favor and just tell our listeners a little bit about you? Yeah, just whatever you want to share in there with your leadership.
Yeah, definitely. Been in ministry for over 25 years now at the church level, serving people, understanding what it means to be a leader, understanding what it means to take a group of people where God is leading us, and have been a part of student ministry first, went up to the Northwest, originally from Dallas, Texas, to church plant in Seattle, Washington, and then even hopped the border to Vancouver, Canada, worked with church planters there, have been in Colorado for over 5 years now, been at the church, back in the church role, for the last year, and it's kind of part of my story. I've got my wife and 3 daughters, and just trying to reach people far from God and do what God's leading us to do.
And you love bylaws.
Favorite thing. I do not. I've lost years off my life because of Constitution bylaws.
Tim has come into this revitalization that we have going on downtown, and it's been fun, and honestly, it's been good. Even the leadership component through relationships has been very vital to build relationships with people that are here, the ones that are coming. And so, I mean, that's a huge part of revitalizing, is not just coming in and taking over and trying to do things and, hey, let's just do it this way, but it's guiding people along on a journey. The journey that we feel God calling them to. And Tim, you're really, really good at that. As a matter of fact, Adam, when we emailed Tim, we were like, all right, so we're going to talk about leadership through relationships. How many points do you think was on the email that we got back?
Man, probably at least 15. And they were all solid, too. I'm like,
way more than that.
We try to keep, 25, 30-minute episodes. I was like, dude, we could go 2 hours on this thing, I would love it.
We could have done a relationship series.
Right?
And could have 100% done the whole year.
And let me qualify, as you guys are talking about this, and you've said some things, and I appreciate you kind of guys tapping me. My first thought was when I got this email, say, hey, you want to talk about leading through relationships? I thought, okay, if I had to talk about something in the instant, in the moment for like 15, 30 minutes, this wouldn't be it. This would not be it at all. This is not, I don't necessarily consider myself gifted at this. there are plenty of things that I'm aware of that I don't do well with people. I'm still learning. But I will say along the way, these are some principles that I've picked up. And I thought, okay, these are at least what I'm striving toward.
Yeah.
And anytime I'm meeting with another leader, these are some things that I'm just kind of passing off. So I'm just a beggar trying to help another beggar find food. And if this is helpful, this is what it is.
The beauty of that, Tim, is like everyone knows, everyone feels like you have a deep relationship with them, that they have a deep relationship with you because of that. So you may not think it's there, but it's natural. Like it's really natural. And so maybe that's why it's like, I want to talk about it because it's something that you do naturally without even thinking about it. And so, and you've always been that way. Amy is the same way. Your wife, she's a great leader as well. Man, we could have Amy and Libby do this episode without any of us here, and it would be really good.
Yeah, way better than what we're going to say today. But I mean, even with Amy, like I've always told people, Amy is like the people meet her and you feel like you were college roommates or something. And most of the time when I show up, people are like, "Hey, where's Amy?" I was like, "She's not here. This is all you get." And people are like, "Oh, okay, we'll take you." Yeah. And so she's great. She's good.
Well, we picked 4 of those that we were going to look at today, and so man, I just want you to expound. Like these were great on how do you lead through relationships, and how do you lead with relationships? Because what we are doing as leaders is relationship oriented.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that you had in there, Tim, was love the person standing in front of you.
Yeah.
Expound on that.
Yeah, and I think it really starts off first just kind of with my understanding of leadership. And back in the 90s when we talked about leadership, when I started discovering what leadership was, the term was leadership is influence. And I totally agree that leadership contains influence. But even nowadays with the platforms of social media and podcasts and different ways that you can influence people, what I've come to discover is there's a lot of people that want to be influencers. They have a lot to say, but they don't necessarily want to be leaders.
Yeah.
Leaders are taking people from one place to another. We're at point A, we want to get to point B, and it takes followers and a group of people. So leadership is messy. Leadership is relational. Like if I'm an influencer through social media, I never have to see my audience. I never have to see my followers. They're doing their own thing. I don't get into their messiness of their lives.
Man,
but when you're leading people, it's messy. And so it's because it's relational. It's not just a matter of what I say to them. It's a matter of, did what I say to them impact them in such a way that collaboratively we go from where we are now to where God wants to take us, specifically in the church realm. And so as I'm thinking about loving the person standing in front of me, if I'm not willing to love them, if I'm not willing to take the time to understand them, understand how they're wired, understand what their passions are, understand maybe their background, how did they get to where they are today, then it's going to be really hard for me to say, okay, this is where we're going, because I'm really going to look at everybody as a one-size-fits-all. And instead, I really just need to love the person standing in front of me. And I'm not saying I do that the best. There are plenty of times. I'm a task-oriented person. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking of the 20 to 100 tasks that get done, that need to get done. But people are part of that. And if I can just love the person standing in front of me, then I think that helps me understand who they are, what does God want to do in the moment, and then allows me to really lead them, not for my sake or for my leadership, but for the ultimate goal or mission or purpose.
Yeah, that's good. This is a struggle of mine. But you said something that makes me, it actually helps me in this. My like 2 words through Unique are empowering movement. So when I see a big room, I'm not trying to spread and not see the people in the room. I'm trying to get them connected to the person that I know has the thing that they need to create movement in their life.
That's good.
But that can come across as not loving the person in front of you. And so it's almost even like I need to have a qualifier for me. Hey, I would love to stand here and talk to you and do this, but I know the person that's going to be able to help you the most is this person. But I don't do that. I just connect them and then I do that. So I mean, like, and that actually helps me a little bit, because I struggle with that, because I'm like, I really do feel the tension when there's a bunch of people. I'm like, man, there's so much that people are walking through here that if they were connected together, they could walk through this thing together and it could help build them up. Because for the same point as you, I want to find out about you. I want to develop you where you are. I want to help you find your 2 words through like Unique and stuff like that. I want to help you find out how God has wired you so that I can push you in that way. So in essence, that really is loving the person in front of you, but I can come across not like that because I'm trying to connect everybody.
Right.
And honestly, just with a quick qualifier, I can just say, hey, you know what? man, I would love to help you with that, but I know someone else that's even better at that, and let me connect you because I love you that way.
That's so
and
good.
yeah, Adam, you're really good with relationships. And
I agree.
Yeah, and what would you say in terms of loving someone standing in front of you? I mean, you're really good with relationships.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier when we were introducing Tim, but like the best mentors and leaders in my life have always made me feel like the most important person in the room, right? Whether that's one-on-one in an office, whether that's, with a bunch of people around, like I felt like the most important people in the room. My thing, I'm pretty good at remembering stories. Now, where I need to get better at is remembering the names that go with that story. I could tell you this person across from me that I met a couple weeks ago. I know what high school he went to. I know where he went to college. I know his passions, but bro, his name just. So that's one thing that I'm trying to grow in my relational.
9.5, weighs 155
like what,
pounds.
Dude? But I think for me, it's really trying to remember what a person's story is.
That's good.
And then because the next week that you see him in our context on a Sunday or even wherever you see them next, if you can say, hey, you told me about this a couple weeks ago. How's that going?
Yeah.
Or I'm reminded of this story, and that was awesome. That is huge for somebody to be like, oh, they do remember, a little bit about me and my story.
One quick tip I have for something that I do because I can get distracted is when I'm meeting at a lunch or something with somebody, I intentionally turn my phone face down.
That's good.
But I do it intentionally. Like I take it out. Not in my pocket or anything else, because a lot of times you'll check your pocket or whatever. So I take my phone, I take it out while they're there, put it face down to let them know, hey, you're important to me right now.
Have you ever played that game with a group of friends at dinner 100%. Where first one to pick up the phone pays
roulette.
For the bill?
We do phone roulette. First one. Now, in my stage of life with 4 kids, we say that the only thing we can do is check to make sure that it wasn't a babysitter or something like that that's watching our kids.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we do phone roulette, man.
I love it.
All the time. And I mean, I think Jesus modeled that too, right? As I've loved you, so love one another. He cared about the people in front of him, no matter who it was. And so another one you said, man, is, and this is so crucial, relationships move the mission forward. How do you see that playing out in our leadership of moving the relationships forward? By the way, go back to that. The best influencers on social media are the ones that actually take time to engage with their followers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other people that don't, but now that you said that, I'm like, yeah, the really ones that everybody love are the ones that like get to interact a little bit with them. So relationships move the mission forward. What do you have to say about that, Tim?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like I'm a mission driven person. So my wife even jokes about like. For me, if I don't feel like we are accomplishing something or going somewhere, like having purpose is probably one of the greatest things for me. Now, purpose for me is mission. We're going to accomplish this. So I'm not just relational for the sake of relational. I've learned that the mission can't go forward with us as a group of people if the relationships aren't strong enough. They're the conduit by which momentum takes place, movement takes place, by which the mission is accomplished. And I think what's important is I remember we were moving from the Dallas-Fort Worth area up to Seattle, and I knew that God was telling us to do this. I knew it, like even to the point of when I went through assessment, I was looking at my assessor saying, I'm going to do this whether I pass your assessment or not, because if I don't do this, then I'm being disobedient to God. And so when we started processing, hey, the different cities or different towns or different parts around the Seattle area that we might be able to land, on paper, there were a couple of cities that kind of stuck out to us saying, hey, this really seems like some really options for us. But when we started driving through one particular town, I just remember we were driving by the schools. I was inside the Starbucks asking people questions about the town. How would they describe the town? Just getting to know the people in the town. And when I came back to my church planning director, I basically said, God, I think God's given me a love for the people of that town. And he said, that's huge because most church planners don't get to that point. They love the idea of planting a church, and they unfortunately use the people to help plant the church. He's like, what I hear you say is your heart is for those people rather than just for a church being planted. Now, as we went in, our heart was for those people. A church was birthed because of our heart for those people, because we said, hey, we're for those people. And what I realized in that process was they weren't a cog to the overall machine that I felt like I was trying to build. They were what we were trying to reach. And so really saying, okay, we've got to build these relationships so that it moves ahead. rather than seeing people as a means to an end.
Yeah.
People are not the means to the end. And so just trying to realize, okay, relationally, I've got to connect with them. I've got to, they're not going to go from point A to point B unless they trust.
Yeah.
There's a absolute factor of trust that has to be there for us to really kind of move and grow and go in the same direction.
Yeah,
and so I think relationships is a huge part of that. And I'm not always the best at that, but I always keep reminding myself of that.
I mean, people are the mission. Relationships are the mission. You know, so it's like, okay, if I am going to move forward, I have to. Now, you know, there's a point where it's like you have to realize that like there are people that won't help move the mission forward.
Yeah.
And honestly, out of the relationship, it may be best to let them know that, hey, man, I love you, I appreciate you, but I don't know that you're bought into the mission that we have here, whatever it is, whether an organization or whatever else. And out of my love and respect for you, it may be best that we part ways there because this is the mission that we have that we're trying to accomplish. And that's actually a love for the people to tell them that. Sometimes we won't. And then they do seem like a cog in the wheel because now we're just trying to use them as, well, let me manipulate them in this way or guilt them into staying for this mission or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's really good because they do move the mission forward. And trust, I think, is the biggest piece.
Yeah, trust is.
Trust, and for them to move the mission forward, you have to communicate with them. You have to have like a shared purpose, shared commitment, trust that's with them. All that has to be there. And that's really, really good.
Yeah.
You also, I love this one. Some will lead the masses, some will lead the few.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes part of that relationally is, I think, one, understanding who you are. There are times where I felt like I had a lot of talent to lead masses, and God didn't open up those doors, and so I said, okay, God, maybe I don't have any talent to lead anybody. But it's really just kind of settling into who you are, who God's wired you to be, and realize, you know what, there are some, you can grow in your leadership capacity, you can grow in your leadership capabilities and skills and hone those in. I think that's important. But at the same time, just looking at people, there are some that are just gifted at leading the masses. Yeah. And then there are some that are going to lead 5 other people or 50 other people or 200 people.
Yeah.
And these aren't necessarily small. They're small numbers per se, but it's okay. And I just think it's important to understand that some will lead the masses, but the goal isn't that everybody leads the masses.
That's so good.
And I think that's definitely a self-awareness piece. And it's also as you start leading other people, understanding that some of them will lead the masses and some of them will just lead smaller groups.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so instead of having an unrealistic expectation of someone who, you know what, they're fit for leading other 5 people or leading 50 other people, instead of having this unrealistic expectation, well, they can't lead the masses, so they're not part of the team. Yeah. Rather than just say, no, there's going to be a lot of them that lead 5 other people. There's going to be a lot of them that lead 50 other people.
Yeah.
Well, Adam,
but understanding that,
even you, I mean, as a young staff member coming in, I mean, that has to be something that's in your mindset, right? Because a lot of young guys come in, they want to lead the masses right away.
Oh yeah.
You have not done that. But I mean, you know, it's not to say that you don't want to lead the masses, or don't desire that. You want to do, you know, what God has you to do. But what would you say to that? Some will lead the masses, some will lead the few.
I hear that, and you've said it all the time too, Chris. On even like what success is simply just having your yes on the table and being obedient to what God is calling you into. Actually, a stat I listened to and read yesterday, actually. 70% of churches in America are less than 100 people.
Oh yeah,
70%.
Yeah.
And so again, that's huge right there. Some will lead the masses, some will lead the few. And we like to be all about numbers, like as church planting kind of mindset. You know, I came in like ready to go. Like I'm ready to lead the masses. I'm ready to get as many people in as possible. If you're watching and you're in the business world, like business is all about the numbers. But you know, how many, even statistically with like even in businesses and stuff, how many teams or organizations are 15, 20 people or maybe even less.
And if you don't lead well in the beginning with the few, you're probably not going to lead well later on with the masses.
Exactly. So it's being okay.
Yeah.
And seeing impact as well. Like, you know, you look at the social media and the influencers and all the big churches on there. They're great. We like, you know, they're doing amazing things. But 70% being 100 or less, that's impact that's still happening in
average church size in America now is down to like 65.
Yeah.
It was 86 and it's down in the 60s
Right.
now.
Yeah.
And I mean, what did Jesus say? He who is faithful with little, will be faithful with much.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think part of that is also understanding the layers of leadership. Like we can look at a pastor of a church that's averaging 10,000 on the weekends. They're like, wow, he's leading 10,000. Really what that means is he's probably leading about 20 to 50 people
100%.
really well.
Yeah.
And he learned that at some point in his ministry career, that he just led whoever was in front of him really well, was found faithful in that, and then was put into a different level. But you also recognize, okay, I've got to lead these 20 to 50 people well, to lead their 20 to 50 people well, to lead their 20 to 50 people well. And so it's understanding the relational dynamic, not just a org chart that says, by my position, I make decisions and you obey. But it's really saying, okay, relationally, I have to lead these people, but I have to train these people, equip these people to lead their people relationally well, or this whole thing just doesn't move. It gets stuck. And a lot of times we're looking for that, flash in the pan or that big bang silver bullet to get things going, to get things momentum. Right. And I agree we're going to need that
for sure,
but it's not going to keep rolling or moving forward unless those relationships happen.
Most leaders can only have like 7 to 10 direct reports.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, it's just impossible after that.
Yeah.
Another one, I mean, you said you're task oriented.
Absolutely. 100%.
In there, it says the task is relationship.
Yes. And that was hard. Ooh. That was a good flip for me. Yeah. And I encourage anybody, anytime I'm talking to someone that's wired a little bit like me when we're task oriented, because when I'm task oriented, people get in the way.
Yeah. Right.
Like I can't accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish because of you. Yeah. And it's usually people. Yeah. And so that's my natural inclination. And I remember I remember when I was first church planting, I had been part of an established church for years, and on Mondays you have these 2 meetings, and on Tuesday you have these 2 meetings, and on Wednesday you get ready for Wednesday night, and on Thursday you get ready for Sunday, and then Wednesday night happens, and Sunday happens, and then Monday it just kind of goes on repeat. Yeah. Yep. So it's very much like you get into this rhythm. Yeah. And I remember going up to church plant, our first church in the Northwest, and I get there, and it's my wife, and we've got our little kids under the age of 5, and I had no meetings. I didn't have anybody to meet with. My wife was tired of me talking with her about church planting, what we're going to do, how this is going to work.
Did you go find somebody to talk to?
And so every time I woke up in the morning, I was like, "Okay, what are my tasks to do?" And I'm making up things for me to do. And I remember meeting my church planning director, and I was like, "What am I supposed to do?" He was like, "Well, you need to go meet people and share the vision of what you're doing." And I was like, okay, but like I'm doing that like as I go, like when I grocery shop or when I go out into public or whatever, I'm kind of doing that. But like, what am I supposed to do with my time? Yeah. And he was like, you're supposed to go meet people and share your vision. Yeah. And I said, okay, I got that. But there's like, I can't just do that all day. And he was like, why not? Yeah. And I was like, I've never just gone met people all day. So the very next morning I woke up and on my to-do list was meet people, share the vision. Wow. And I all of a sudden I realized sitting behind the desk at a computer didn't equate church office hours 100%. Or because I was looking to justify why am I drawing a paycheck? Yeah. And so I realized, hey, I've got to go meet people. And at that moment, all of a sudden I realized, okay, relationships are the task. Mm-hmm. Connecting with people is the task. Yeah. That's what's going to get this going in the direction that I feel like God is calling us to go. And so instead of saying, I have to tell myself, because even to this day, I mean, I learned that back in 2007, and I'm still learning it today. I'm still reminding myself today,
go meet some people.
I've got not only go meet some people, but I've got 20. Yes, you have 20 things to do, Tim. Yeah. But the person standing in front of you is the task. Right. Don't miss it.
And relationships help move the mission
relationships, forward. It's all in that together. So they can be distractions. I'm not saying no, but it's realizing that it's all part of it.
Well, I think that's where you in the church setting, that's where you find a lot of when leaders become isolated and insulated, then they stop moving the mission forward because they forget what it's like. And if you don't, I do a lot of my prep and stuff in other areas. I don't like sitting in an office because I want to see the people. and I want to meet the people, and I want to engage with the people, and I want to think about the person even when I'm writing a message. I want to think about, okay, that barista that I met, over here.
Yeah, absolutely.
How would this sit with them?
Yeah.
And then I was with a planter yesterday, and we were talking about next steps. I said, in the next 90 days, you need to meet 100 new people.
Yes.
You need to meet 100 new people in the next 90 days.
Yep.
And it was like, this is what it's going to take. And, you need to have something to point those people to.
Yep.
And you're pointing those people to something because you want to see change in their life. And so, it's because those relationships that you build are going to help move the mission forward. Those relationships that's where leadership comes. You're going to grow. They're going to trust you. There's going to be shared vision. There's going to be shared purpose. Go meet 100 people in the next 90 days. Find a way to meet 100 people, get their name. And I don't mean like, oh yeah, I saw this dude that had brown hair and I don't know his name.
Yeah.
Adam.
Right.
And
Come on, man.
I know everything about it, but I mean, like, find out something about them.
That's right.
Know their wife's name, know their kids' names, know their dog's name, know their fish's name, know their job place, whatever it is. Go find 100 people that you know.
Yeah.
Adam, what would you say to that?
I think that can be scary too if
Absolutely.
you are a task-oriented person,
Absolutely.
because you don't know how long that might take to invest in a conversation. Like on my other stuff on my to-do list, on my computer work, I know how long it's going to take to edit a sermon or to post something or to do some online stuff. I don't know how long this conversation might take. It might take 2 hours out of my day.
Yeah.
And so that's something that stuck out to me, but that you were saying,
you got to know
Tim,
when to shut that down.
Right. And hey, it can't be a podcast without a quote from Craig Rochelle, right? We're like 4 weeks in a row. One thing that he said that stuck out to me a couple weeks ago on his show, he said, you can really tell who a person really is by how they deal with distractions.
Oh yeah.
Or interruptions, distractions. If someone comes into the office or they get a phone call, you can tell how a person is by how they deal with interruptions or distractions. And so I think it's, again, not looking at it as distractions, but as a cause to an end. Like, we have to have relationships and leadership.
And the deal is, because the last one, it's not as much a point, but it's a statement. Like, transform lives. Transform lives. So we know that people are are the goal. Relationships are our goal. The task is relationships. If we're going to lead, it's going to have to be leading through relationships. It's because we're trying to see transformation.
Yeah.
And when we see those transformed people being transformed, they're going to transform other people. It's from our, Christian worldview and where we are as followers of Christ, we're here because of the relationships that men and women made thousands of years ago and continue to make. And those people made relationships that transform relationships. Like, the gospel came to me on its way to someone else. I heard the gospel because it came on its way to someone else. Tim, how would you close out?
Yeah, I think understanding that, like, my ultimate, like, I'm a relational human being. God has created me, and He's created the person that comes across, like, our paths cross. And so how is God using me to help them become more of who God originally created them to be? And how are they helping me become more of how God has originally created me to be?
Yeah.
And so I think if those things happen with everyone that we come across to some degree, and I'm not talking about 30 minutes with every single person that comes across. We don't have that. That's not functional for life.
Yeah.
But it's just at least taking that posture towards someone and understanding they're not a distraction. They're not a hindrance. God has brought them along my life. What does He want me to glean from them? Because He has shaped their life to be who they are today. And He's still shaping their life to be who He wants them to become. Yeah. And if I understand my role in that process and our responsibility as a community and relationships, then I think we understand the beauty of what God is doing throughout all of our relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. I think practically for that, it's, okay, who is investing in me? Because I need to have that. And then who am I investing in? And what relationships are important? Do I see them in front of me, not just a cog in the wheel, but is it someone that I need to spend that time with and really get to know? Do I really know the people that are around me and the people that I'm leading? And maybe that is just my team. Maybe that's the team that we have. Can I lead out in a way that I know them deeply and they know that I care? I ask 3 questions to our team all the time. What is God telling you? What are you doing about it? And how can I help? And I think that shows the value that I have for them and what's going on in their own life. And so the challenge would be, how are your relationships? Man, are people a cog in the wheel? Are people just something for you to kind of check a box with, or what? But we don't want it to be that. We want you to be able to have relationships that transform, relationships that do other things. And so transform lives. And so, hey, thanks for tuning in for our episode of Elevate Your Leadership. I hope your relationships will grow in and through what Tim brought with us today. Tim, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
This won't be the last time.
Nope.
See you next time.